Gathoni Wamuchomba, the Member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency, in her second term in Parliament. The first time she was representing the people of Kiambu County, and now you're in second term.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Humbled. Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I continuously listen to you. You've just hooked me into this station. And like what you've just given as a preamble, having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content. I mean, it's just the best in the morning.
Well done.
It's the best you can ever have in the morning. And congratulations.
Asante.
Yeah.
Asante and karibu sana.
Yeah.
And Eric, could you allow me to, before you get into the issues, to acknowledge that you're one of the few chairs of committees in Parliament. And we should also appreciate the fact that you raised concerns that women were not given, there's a kind of hierarchy in these committees, and women were given, it's a very important committee that you lead, but women also needed to have been faced in the larger committees, and well done for raising that issue.
Thank you.
Promises were made. The gender struggle still continues, and still needs to be fought.
And we will keep following up on that. So Gathoni is the chair of the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee of the National Assembly. You're here today because there's something that you've been raising in Parliament and outside Parliament, the issue of, as we go into these, bipartisan talks, can we also talk about equitable distribution of resources? And you say the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling conversation needs to come up, and let's discuss that. But to welcome you to the show,
thank you.
City has the day's proverb.
Yes, in fact, this is really interesting because the proverb for today from Côte d'Ivoire is 2 flavors confuse the palate. But here in the studio, we have 3 flavors. Yes. so how confused will the palate be?
First of all,
Identify the flavors so we can all be on the same page.
Mheshimiwa, freedom fighter, the man in the chair. The 3 flavors.
Freedom fighter.
Yes.
freedom fighter is Chiro.
Yes, I have no doubt. I'm hoping we're all freedom fighters at the core. Modern day.
Oh, modern
no,
day.
modern day.
Contemporary.
Yes.
Even the dreadlocks.
Yeah.
They're modern day dreadlocks.
We have to fight for the total liberation of our country, and work with all those who are of like mind.
Agreed.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Gathoni,
Yes.
why did you decide to start this conversation about 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling? And what's it all about?
I don't think I started. I just picked it up from where we left. Because, of course, we've been having this kind of discussions in Parliament where we feel like there are some communities that have more opportunities than others when it comes to the sharing of the national cake. Allow me first, before I discuss the 1 man, 1 shilling issue, to just highlight on something Shiro had said previously in the show. I think you're discussing about this whole thing of horror in Shakahola. And it's sickening to just watch TVs and listen to radios on what is happening. But unfortunately, there's a big question we're asking: where was the police? Where was NIS? I mean, this forest is in Kenya, within the boundaries of Kenya. Where was NIS? But unfortunately, our NIS and our police force and our security, we have capitalized so much on the gun and the bullets, the walls of the prisons and the cells, the corridors of magistrates and judges, and we have ignored the social aspect of life in Kenya. And there's so many ills that are happening around the social welfare of our people, but we don't have anybody to police it. We don't have a social welfare policing in Kenya. And it is sad and sickening that this girl who just killed her child and ate up the body in Kitengela, instead of taking her to for medication, for healthcare intervention, we're actually locking her against the 4 walls of the cells. Are we doing justice to her? And many other cases like that. Yesterday, a parent called me from my constituency in Githunguri, the great constituency that I represent. And she told me she has a neighbor who has been a serial offender in raping children. And every time this man is arrested with clear evidence, he's released because he's mentally not okay. And now the parent was asking me, he has already done that to 2 children, defiled them, messed up their lives completely. Like one case, it was very, very, very greasy. And are we waiting for him to rape the 3rd child so that we can now decide to take him to Mathare or to take him wherever? Yeah. So there is a gap. And I heard somebody, I think it's City, who said, leaders. Please stop talking about leaders. We are also victims. Yeah? It's not a problem of leadership. It's a problem of all of us. We just need to get to this national conversation about our social welfare. We have invested in the police, like I've said. We have militarized everything. We have securitized everything. But that social aspect of it is missing. We've got so many people who are in the police force with uniforms, but they are sick. Right now, we are fighting illicit alcohol and substance abuse in our backyards, like in Central. But I can tell you, shockingly, when I was a woman representative for Kiambu, because I ran a rehab, the many professionals that are sick mentally, the numbers are alarming. So I think as a leader, it's my duty whenever I get a platform like this one to air out our frustrations. Because, for example, the lady who called me yesterday from my constituency, who is my voter, believes that I can give her a solution. But where do I get the solution? If I go and get this guy, what laws protects him against me picking him and taking him to Mathare? And when you take him to Mathare, who is going to pay the bills? We have commercialized our healthcare in this country. So much commercialized that I cannot take a patient to any hospital without depositing some fair amount of money for me to be able to help this gentleman. Fine, he's sick and he needs help, but who is to help? So I think that's something maybe as a show you can pick it up, maybe call the relevant people, including myself as a leader, and let's have this national conversation, because things are getting out of hand. I'm sorry for derailing you, but I thought
it's a very good thing that you raised.
That we need to.
We want to send you to Parliament, Mheshimiwa, to speak to the chair of the committee that's in charge of health. You can, the time now that every Wednesday you have a CS coming. Yeah. The day the CS for health comes before that house, the first question she should answer is, the Ministry of Health, the Minister for Health, set up a task force to look at the mental well-being of Kenyans. That task force presented a report back to the Minister for Health. And the top recommendation was declare mental health a national disaster.
Thank you.
Okay? It has never been done. So ask that first question. Yeah. And then secondly, because once it's been done that, then the second thing would be, what are the programs that they're putting in place to address this national disaster? But I think without that, then we are going...
Even before we seek to declare mental health a national disaster, I think there are things that we have failed. There's so many gaps that we have not been able to fill, because the laws are there. It's only that we do not want to, one, fund towards the implementation of that law. Yes. And 2, implementation, equipping ourselves towards implementation. Yeah. Because what would make Mathare Hospital take care of such cases if we stopped the commercialization aspect of it? About 3 years ago, I rescued a mad woman. Those women who roam in the shopping centers naked, I felt like as a woman I should rescue. I rescued a mad woman and her son. I actually adopted the son. He lived in my house for about 4 years. And I can tell you the pain I went through taking care of this mad woman to recovery, the journey to recovery, because she finally recovered. It took me 4 years. I spent almost 2 million shillings. And that was a public facility that I was spending that amount of money.
What?
Yes. So if I'm a leader, I am blessed with resources and I can afford to do this. How many families can afford to do what I did?
Okay.
So I think...
Did you take that matter up in Parliament?
Yes, I did.
So what are the gaps? What are the financing gaps? Is it a policy issue? Is it a program issue? Is it a budget issue?
It's a budget issue.
If it's a budget issue, then as Parliament, you're a budget-making Parliament. What are the solutions?
I heard you say we have no money to budget. We are budgeting what we don't even have.
Actually, what we said...
Previously, this show, I heard you say...
No, what we said is that the priorities are wrong.
Yeah.
And that money is going towards expenditures at the expense of the social. Privatization like you're talking about mental health facilities, public facilities not being affordable. That's a privatization aspect. So the priorities are wrong. So one, we don't have the social policy. Then the prioritization, the little money we have, where is it going? And of course, then governance, because we are losing a lot to governance that needs to come back to fund these very important aspects.
If you ask me, from where I come from my experience being in Parliament now for the 6th year, I think, I don't want to say that Parliament is a wrong body to do budgeting, but you can't mix money issues with politics and get it right.
Something will go wrong.
Yeah. And that's our problem.
So the politics is derailing us.
Problem. Because I will go there and say, we need to prioritize mental health and we need to give this budget. And then after I'm done with my budget at my committee level, for example, and hand over my budget to another department that has some influence with politics and there were some priorities that were politicized and need to be given the first priority, my budget will be slashed. In fact, yesterday, the whole of yesterday, can I tell you, I spent the whole of yesterday fighting for my budgets. I will not disclose which ones because I don't want to spill the beans before. But yesterday, somebody just took a pen and a paper and slashed off my budgets of a project that I pledged to my people in front of the president, in front of the deputy president. And somebody just takes the pen and slashed off. That's politics. So it is very difficult for us to balance and do what you're saying, the priority projects, because the formula is not workable. We have to decide. Our work is politics. Somebody else has to do the budgets for us. Or we are the budgeting, but it's not possible for politicians to keep off politics. Countries that do well in budgeting, the David D's of this world are the people who sit down and say, this is the way to go. But this comes on TV and says, we are doing this as Kenya Kwanza. We are doing this as Kenya Kwanza. But he's not going to take the pen and give us the budget in Parliament.
So essentially what we're saying is that
there's
clouded vision here because then it is not possible to see the social side of things. It's not possible then to see that mental health in Kenya is a problem that's affecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. That a situation that has taken the whole country by storm for the last 1 week in Kilifi County is not going to be seen as a priority to be dealt with in other areas because people are worrying about which side of the political divide they must pander to. And then this is a very sad thing then because we're talking about many issues that ought to be dealt with. Here we are talking about bipartisan talks, 1 shilling, 1 man, 1 vote. But people are going to not vote because they are necessarily interested in how we're going to take resources down to the people, but they're more interested in political expediency and how I'm going to come back next time.
Exactly.
You cannot run a country like that.
Formula that I'm saying is that's a problem. It's like I am the chef, I come up with the ingredients, but I have to hand over my ingredients to somebody else in the kitchen to cook for me. And we'll oversalt, you'll overcook, and that's not was my intention. That's the formula we have. We have to decide that this budgeting process is so important for this country, and sober minds must be trusted to make the budgets for us. Sober minds.
Can I ask, Mheshimiwa, is that question part of the national dialogue? Because one way or the other, we are at a point of whether it's a bilateral or a national dialogue, some of us favor the latter. There are issues that ail us.
Yes.
That we must address.
Yeah.
Is this one of the issues that has been identified, or are politicians still looking minimally at power sharing?
Unfortunately, the issues on the table, and that's why I'm here to speak about the issues that really, to me, matters. The issues at the table right now is who is going to get this office. I mean, what position am I going to get out of this whole bipartisan talk? I mean, to me, what is important is, at the end of the day, right now, our economy is shaky. I heard you discuss matters money here.
It's on its knees.
We should be sitting on that table to discuss how are we going to raise our living standards, the revenues that we are collecting. How are you going to seal the loopholes of some projects that are now going to become ghost projects because they're not going to be completed, yet they were started and budgets were committed. But to sit on the table to discuss who's going to be the leader of that, the office of this, I think we are getting it wrong. And that is what I said. It's politics. The bipartisan talk is totally 100% politics. It's got nothing to do with that jama I'm seeing on the sufuria on the head. I mean, thinking that this bipartisan is going to give them ugali. Nothing. No ugali on the way. I mean, and we should stop using our voters. We misuse them. I mean, the whole of this, if you ask me, it's all about 2-3 people. Absolutely. Yeah? But we are using the hunger, the lack of food as currency for you know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I am that honest. Yeah. And I am on record. I said somewhere in a public meeting that if really we are to be engaged in this bipartisan talk, and I said I would want to be a committee if you're going to discuss on 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, because that's what's ailing my voters. That's what's pushing my voters. That's what really I feel is an issue that my voter would love to see their MP discuss, but not go and discuss those issues like I have mentioned.